What is up, everyone? Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. It's the Trade to Black podcast presented by Flowhub. I'm your host, Shad Dales. AB going to come on in just a moment, as well as Jacob Raver. He is senior managing partner at Dentons. He works with Eric Berlin, who we've had on a number of times, but he understands the story better than anyone. And what is it? It's about the NRA with cannabis groups at the Supreme Court level. Tom Angel has been reporting on this quite a bit about marijuana moments. We're going to bring him on, get a little bit of dialogue and direction as well. We'll get some updates about Anthony talking about what's going on in Florida right now, as well as some news regarding the cannabis company holdings. And I'm sure some of you saw the stuff that was floating around on Twitter over the weekend regarding Bill Barr. So I don't really have much to offer there, but yeah, pretty serious. And if those are true, but yeah, there's some reports floating around that he is indeed involved in some of these Epstein files. So the plot thickens here as we get down to the 11th hour towards the rescheduling of cannabis. So with that, let's welcome in AV on a Monday, and lots of topics to discuss here today. Florida, NRA, the cannabis company holdings. Anything else I'm missing here? I think we had a couple more.
No, I mean, the big headlines this morning were Florida. The forbearance agreement with the Cannabist went out after market on Friday. Kind of snuck under the radar. I didn't see it until last night when I was doing the Baked In newsletter. And then there's just the NRA. I mean, the NRA filing the amicus brief in support of the initiatives to really bring clarity from a constitutional perspective if cannabis users should have the right to bear arms and own firearms while they are not intoxicated, which they should. It makes common sense and it aligns with the law of the land as it stands today. So it's good to have a organization such as the NRA in our corner that has the firepower, influence, and standing, especially amongst the institutions in Washington, D.C. In our corner. So this is it's a warranted conversation. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation and quite an insightful one as to the process moving forward and what we could potentially expect.
Indeed, it is.
And how we got here in the first place.
Yeah, but like you've said, this isn't the first time, but it just seems to be that this relationship, with the NRA and various cannabis groups actually forming to approach this at the Supreme Court level is a great thing. And it's the growth of the industry. And like you said, anytime you have the NRA on your side, there's some real power there. So with that, welcome in senior managing partner of Dentons, Jacob Raver, first time to the podcast. Good to meet you. How are things and how was the weekend?
Great weekend. Great to see the NRA. Great to be here.
I know. Yeah. So I don't want to say this is unexpected because, as Anthony said, we've seen this happen before where the NRA is now starting to work more and more with different cannabis groups. Why is that? What are we learning more about this, agency, industry, this company? What's the proper term we're trying to use as far as the NRA? But long story short, this is a very, very good thing for the cannabis space pertaining to this story, is it not?
You can't gainsay this at all. I'm glad. As you can imagine, at a big law firm, there's not a lot of people that generally put cannabis with gun rights. And that just happened naturally. I'm a veteran, U.S. Marine Corps. I learned how to wield a variety of weapons. And then I became a lawyer and I became a cannabis attorney. And it just made sense to me. The reason why this is becoming bigger and bigger now really has to do with a larger Supreme Court trend regarding the Second Amendment more generally.
Right.
So this starts back in 2008 with Heller saying that there is a Second Amendment right to individuals to have weapons. And then over the years that has broadened. In 2022, we had a New York Pistol Association v. Bruin. We just call it, Bruin case.
Yep.
Which said that you need to look when you're looking at any sort of restriction that a state does, a jurisdiction does, the way a court needs to evaluate it is to look at the history and traditions of the United States. And that just changed everything. I don't want to get into this, how courts generally in the past have reviewed restrictions on freedoms, constitutional freedoms, but that was not always the case. So that was a big deal. Since then, you've had a lot of lower courts, then circuit courts saying that the current restriction on cannabis users and other drugs, it's not just cannabis users, it's controlled substances users, that that in the history and tradition of the United States, you cannot be categorically taking away their weapons rights, their gun rights.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, isn't really to get down to brass tacks? It's a function of you can't really prohibit somebody from owning a firearm because due to them taking an intoxicant a small amount of the time, because they are not in that altered state all of the time. It just seems like it's completely contradictory in the way that that they've gone about it. And did you expect that this was going to go to the Supreme Court, that this was the trajectory of the, I guess, argument or the case?
We could see it now for more than a year. And that was just because it was percolating through the lower courts to the various circuit courts. Mm-hmm. And then you were seeing these circuit court decisions that were generally coming pro cannabis users or drug users' gun rights.
Right.
So it was just reading, what you were seeing in front of you. The U.S. government. I actually wrote an article last year. I thought that the U.S. government was going to pivot and say, you know what, let's just get out in front of this. Mm-hmm. And not be pushed by the various courts and just allow it and just put out a new rule, promulgate a new rule. But that didn't happen. And what we've seen was that the government decided to push this up and push one of the cases. It turns out to be United States v. Hemp, but there's a variety of cases that could have been before the Supreme Court. But the U.S. government said, hey, we want to decide this one. We'll put this in front of you. Versus others.
For instance, within this industry too, we have guidance at the federal level, and then we also have guidance that sometimes contradicts the feds at the state level. If there is a ruling in the court that it is an individual's constitutional right to own firearms as well as be able to consume and be a medical marijuana patient, are there expected at the federal level? Are there expected things that could happen at the state level to keep the status quo that we're seeing now, where people are saying that you cannot own firearms and be a cannabis consumer simultaneously?
So there's two things, and I'll get to one of them a little bit later. But one, we've already seen some changes at the federal level. The ATF put out a new rule about a week plus ago. But just going right to your point, your question. So let's say the Supreme Court says, even if you're a regular user, they can't just categorically take away your gun rights. Would a state like New York, for example, correct? Would they be able to jump in? No. This would apply broadly until we actually see what the decision is. Because I'm a lawyer, so broad statements never work. It's all in the little nuances. But going back to what I wanted to make my first point was that the ATF put out a rule changing the definition of unlawful user or addict to a controlled substance, which to medical marijuana might actually already have made a difference. They put out an interim final rule, so it actually came out. It's in effect. They're receiving comments. You can put out comments right now until June. And they changed the rule. So it's not just, it used to be you just do marijuana once and that's it. Now it's you have to be a regular user. And if you're doing marijuana because of or another drug, again, I'm saying marijuana now, but we're talking broadly about any controlled substance. If you're doing that as per a medical prescription, then that would be considered okay by this new rule. So in some ways, it's interesting.
It would be go ahead. Okay, go on.
Yeah, that's foreshadowing. Do you think that's foreshadowing for rescheduling?
I don't see why not. One thing I would yes and no. It's like agencies are made up of people, and people do what we do. They talk to each other, but they can be distinct organizations, and they can have different power centers within those. I was part of a big bureaucracy in the military. So you can have different, one group, one agency saying this, and it doesn't necessarily track what the DOJ is going to do, what Pam Bondi is going to do. But I think there is something to that. The fact that the ATF, in some ways, they had to adjust their definition, because right now they're arguing to the Supreme Court that it's habitual, regular use, not a one-off. And if you stop your habitual regular use, then you can buy weapons. Before, it was you do a one-off. The form still right now, form 4473, you might be familiar with it. When you go purchase a weapon, you have to attest that you haven't used marijuana. And currently they haven't changed the form, but if you just use it once, then you'd be lying on a federal form, and that's its own
so
violation.
Who's defining habitual use? Wait, is that a self-definition? Is that just an ambiguous definition to kind of be able to kind of catch people? But I mean, how does that language come to be, or I guess defined in the way it's used?
It's actually not defined, habitual.
Okay.
And that was a curious, why are they using that word? It's defined in certain cases, but it's not defined in federal law. They in part of the petition, the government's petition for certiorari to the Supreme Court, basically defined it as just regular use, a pattern of use over time.
So they're painting with broad strokes with this language in it themselves.
Yeah, it's
this is a real good example, as the left hand has not spoken to the right hand in quite a few years, but it appears those days could be over. Finish your thought, Jacob, but there's just so much when you start to look under the hood, you realize how much confusion, and this is I don't want to say simple, but this can be changed and fixed real fast. Especially you look at the popularity of how much approval cannabis is spreading across the country. But finish your thought.
So my thought is, this is happening in March. The arguments are going to be March 2nd.
Right.
We'll probably see a decision this summer. Are we going to see rescheduling a final order before then? I thought maybe. So it could all happen right at the same time, one before the other. But this is a positive trend towards normalization, and with so many, gun rights has become a big deal in the past 10 years. And I've seen it as it's not necessarily related. One didn't beget the other, but you're just seeing it at the same time. More Americans are owning guns. More Americans are living in states where you can permitless carry, you can concealed carry. You don't need a permit. And more Americans are living in places where they have access to recreational cannabis.
Right, exactly.
And so you just have more and more Americans are technically felons every day.
So if cannabis rescheduling is confirmed, which we all think it's going to be, and it probably is, how does this change everything? And does this even matter as much anymore once that's written into law?
So rescheduling is, and Eric would love to talk about this as well, but you're just changing it from one schedule to another. And I say just, it's a big deal. There's tax implications, normalization. There's also extra research that allow that to broaden, but it won't make the medical or the recreational programs legal federally. So it doesn't. It's still distinct. It'll still be making progress on one front and then also making progress on another.
You think that has any influence on the Supreme Court once they do see rescheduling on what is ultimately the outcome in this?
I don't think so. I think most likely their minds are already made up. I think if I was a betting person, which I'm not, but more and more Americans are, I'd say it's already decided that they probably will say you can't just bar people for even regularly use. You need to show present intoxication, or that what have you. If you use it at this many times, and all of a sudden you became dangerous, which I think would be hard to make a categorical statement. That's what they're trying to say now. Oh, you're a habitual user, then you're likely to commit a crime or be dangerous to your fellow citizens, which I don't think the majority of justices will abide by. No, go ahead.
Are you conversing with any organizations on the other side of the coin, be it the firearms industry or any of those groups outside of the NRA? And if so, I mean, what's their propensity to support cannabis? Like, are they aligned with this argument and do fundamentally believe that cannabis consumers should be able to exercise their constitutional right and own firearms simultaneously? As long as they're not intoxicated?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to them officially, but I mean, you saw, we just mentioned how the NRA and other organizations submitted an amicus brief. I think broadly you have it's impossible to tell, but you have, I bet again, a sizable proportion of the population that is deciding not to partake in cannabis because they treasure their Second Amendment rights. And I think that's not marginal. It's there. And if you open that, you will see, maybe it's not huge, but you'll see a marked uptick in that, greater population using it.
Do we know how many members are involved in the NRA? Any idea?
I last I checked, I'm in a part of member of the NRA. I think it's in millions. I forget what the number was. Yeah. I haven't checked in a while.
Well, you bring up, that's a very good point for the industry itself. And as far as growth, it's just, a lot of people with their Second Amendment, you're probably right, that are hesitant. Even outside of the NRA, there's people, let's say, for example, in the state of Michigan, they do not consume cannabis, even though it's legalized both medically and recreationally in the state, but they're worried about losing their jobs. That's just the stigma regarding this industry and why there's so many laws that are completely outdated. But, if you look at this and if the courts rule that cannabis users can indeed own guns, and it's obviously going to push the federal government towards updating a lot of cannabis laws. So be curious to see how we start to see that manufacture and develop more and more, even outside of the rescheduling aspect of cannabis, and really how it starts to build more momentum. Are you anticipating that at all?
Yes, I think it all. They might not be in the same game, but it's definitely providing momentum generally. So I think they're all different hands of the same push. And as long as you got one there, another here, and it's definitely helping out. I see that. I feel that, and maybe I'm partisan here because I do own weapons and I do partake. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but that's a whole nother issue. How that. But yeah, I think it definitely increases momentum.
Jacob, when did you serve as a Marine?
I was in for 4 or 5 years from 2009, 2013. Yeah. 2011, I was in Afghanistan.
Okay. Do you talk to, I guess there's, we always talk about veterans first and the access to medicine, but it seems pretty crazy that here we are in 2026 and still how this is still classified. And I do think that all signs point to the direction that we're going to get rescheduling, but man, it just seems crazy to think it's taken this long. And I'm sure there's lots of people that you've spoken to of where you used to work and colleagues that you have and people that you obviously, worked with when you were part of the U.S. Marine Corps. And, it's kind of crazy, like I said, to think where we are still in 2026 with a Schedule I drug classification.
It is. And so what happens is, as a veteran, if you need help, it comes to a point where you just need to get help. And whatever the rules are, somebody, if traumatic brain injury, PTSD, those dark moments, and what are you going to do? And they've gone to their doctor's prescribed them drugs that's gotten them addicted, that's put them on the path, or that's a whole nother conversation, but they need help. And whether it's this or it's psychedelics, then they need to do it. And I support that. And yes, we're here now. It's been more than a decade plus since I was in the active duty.
Yeah.
And yeah, oh yeah, it's there. And I think you see it all the time. You read about it, so you can only imagine how much more in the background people are talking about it and pushing
of
for
course.
it.
Of course. One of our viewers actually writes, but in states like Illinois, medical cannabis is a recommendation, not a prescription. Big difference. Yes, he's asking that question. Is that correct?
So he's getting into the nuance of, I raised the whole ATF rule, and they're saying a prescription. How do you characterize? How would the federal government characterize a state certification? Right, and the whole process, is that a prescription? I couldn't answer that right now. I have to look at the Illinois law, and this is something I've thought about, and it's something that my colleagues have, and it's come up in the past, and we'll see. I think now that the rule is out, you might definitely now it'll be challenged, or it'll be used, and maybe somebody will be arrested. Hey, I just went through this program, and my doctor said take cannabis. I'm taking cannabis, so I'm good. And then it'll go through the process, the legal process.
Yeah. Well, all eyes on this and see how this develops, among other things in Washington as well. But I want to get a legal aspect as to like where this sits and what we can expect next. But you're thinking probably summertime would be an actual ruling on all this. Is a realistic timeline you're thinking, correct?
That's generally how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's cannabis after
all.
It
comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope come July. We're going to talking about a lot of different things, and we're on to the next chapter of this story. But all in all, listen, appreciate your service, and appreciate you coming on here and giving us some direction. And tell Eric that we say hi, and let's keep in touch, okay?
I will. Thank you, guys.
All right.
you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jacob. Great questions that you had there. But yeah, it's I like the idea. It sounds like they pretty much have already made their decision. Nothing is for sure until it's, like you said, sign on the dotted line. But nice to see, like we said, the NRA and different cannabis groups. And that would be very telling on how many members of the NRA could
5 million, by the way.
5 million?
5 million active members of the NRA in the United States.
And you wonder if them are sitting on the sidelines of preventing from buying cannabis because of.
I mean, I know gun owners in the state of Florida that don't have medical cards because of that.
Wow.
It's I'm not saying it's like frequent, but I mean, I know people, I'm sure a bunch of other people know people in the state of Florida that would have medical cards if it wasn't for firearms. And I mean, it's going to be something that changes. The fact that they're trying to say that a user of cannabis doesn't have the ability to exercise their Second Amendment right is almost as contradictory as cannabis being on Schedule 1 still in 2026. Like it's just asinine. It's archaic, and it's pretty much going to be a slam dunk to change, because things like habitual use, like who's defining that? If you're not intoxicated, you can't really tell an individual that their constitutional rights don't apply. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And this is the problem. I've done a lot of these Cannabis in 5 videos, and the more and more I actually start these scripts, I'm just like, it's mind-boggling to think, we sit here and talk about it. The federal government, the state level, complete disconnect. And, those days have got to change when you think about the overall approval rating right now. But this is probably the one that gets so much attention whenever I do these videos, is about gun rights, members of the NRA, and how you cannot basically own a handgun if you have a medical card, which to me is...
You can't own an assault rifle. You can't own a weapon.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's segue to Texas. And basically they're looking at ideas to regulate this whole hemp market versus actually a full right ban, which
good.
I think is smart. You know
what they should do? They should do what I said 9 months ago,
which is
bring an adult use cannabis industry online, open up the licensing process.
Yep.
Allow applicants to apply for the license, give out the licenses, enable them to leverage their current infrastructure, whoever applies and can operate within that framework, and bring adult use cannabis online in the state of Texas. If there are sound operators there that have businesses with infrastructure that can operate in a tested and regulated environment, open the licensing up, bring the walls down.
Agreed.
And make Texas a competitive cannabis market in the United States. It's not difficult. You'll weed out all of the bad actors and just open up the licensing with low barriers to entry and bring the industry online. There is no need to ban it. And if these companies are who they say they are, there should be plenty of companies in the state of Texas that can apply for these licenses and then operate in a safe, tested, regulated capacity under the state guidelines.
The market
is that easy. And the market's huge.
It's too big to ignore at this point.
Yeah.
Way too big to ignore. And all eyes are definitely on the state of Texas, considering that each time they've gone to ban it, it's been struck down. So they're stuck right now. But yeah, it just makes complete sense. A regulated market.
I'm not saying over-regulated. I'm saying regulate it.
Right.
That's it. Regulate it. Regulate it like any other adult use state in the United States. Come up with your own framework, tax it, regulate it, mandate testing, mandate tracking, bring the industry online, and grandfather in those hemp companies that can operate within the confines of that industry. It's not that hard.
Cole member writes, opening license ain't happening, AV. As much as you and I want it, these companies think they need a legal moat to protect them from competition. That's what Cole Memo writes. I guess.
I mean, there's no legal moat in Michigan. There's no legal moat in Missouri. There ain't legal moats in Washington, Oregon, Colorado, California. Like, open it up. It doesn't need to be Florida. There's a $5 or $6 billion market sitting in Texas right now, at least with companies that claim that they're operating a legitimate business. Open it up and let them compete.
Brandon Krieger actually feels Texas already has an amazing cannabis market. No reason to overregulate it.
Talking about the hemp market.
Yeah. Just Chad writes, out of the 125 employees at my workplace, there's about 50 I know personally holding out for their gun rights to seek out a cannabis prescription. No kidding. Wow, it's almost 50% of your staff. That's huge. Chad, where are you out of? What state? Let us know. All right, let's move now down south to Florida. And fight isn't about products, but whether voters can even get a chance to vote. Where are we at with this? Because it sounds like this is becoming a tougher and tougher uphill climb as to some of the things that are developing. I know you reached out to, what's his title now? It's not Senator Joe Gruters. It's
he's the head of the RNC, chair of the RNC.
Chair of the RNC.
It's not good. It's really not good at face value. They still have signatures to count. Apparently, they have more than enough valid signatures that were collected that will be tallied, and then the ballot initiative will get on the ballot in 2026. But as per, I think it was yesterday or it was early this morning, the official communications out of the state of Florida is none of the ballot initiatives collected enough signatures to be put on the ballot in 2026. Smart and Safe lost their appeal that got 70,000 signatures invalidated that were claims of out-of-state residents or non-registered voters, etc. But from what I've heard, they have ample signatures that are still being tallied that should count here. This is just DeSantis doing DeSantis things. He's going to fight this tooth and nail. He's not going to go away. And this is going to be an uphill battle now to even get the damn thing on the ballot in 2026.
I'm seeing and hearing, I think I read this correctly in the wild. There's 1.4 million signatures they're claiming that they have.
Yeah, which would be ample.
Huge.
More than enough.
It's 880,000 they need. So yeah.
Correct.
As of Monday, the State of Division's elections website showed 783,000 valid signatures for the measure, but it needs 880 valid signatures by Sunday to qualify.
Correct.
So we'll see how this shakes out. But all in all, like based on your network, what's the sentiment as to how, like, okay, like, are they going to get enough signatures? And if they do, like, is there something?
The thing is right now is, from what I can hear, what I've heard, they have enough signatures. They're just still being counted and validated. But at the same time, I've obviously had my reservations about this thing passing in November, regardless. In a gubernatorial year, we'll see who comes out and votes in Florida. I'm not putting adult use in 2026 as part of my thesis on the industry moving forward. Honestly, if you want to talk about value creation this year, VA, PA, S3, those three catalysts flipping are enough to get us to where we need to be from an overall just industry perspective.
Yeah.
Florida going adult use would be icing on the cake.
It would.
I'm not including Florida in any of my theses. I'm not including Florida in any of my downside. I'm just letting it happen. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, this is still an over $2 billion market that Trulieve owns. Move executes well in. Curaleaf has a pretty good penetration in. And then there's some smaller operators here that do well. The Florida market's not going to go anywhere. It's still a very healthy market. But adult use in 2026 is not something that I'm going to bet on and or include in my investment thesis, looking at the industry as a whole. I'm just not.
What's the sentiment around Byron Donalds and like, him running for governor within the state of Florida? Do you think he has the support there? And if so, I know
mixed bag.
DeSantis'
crowd hates Byron Donalds. There's a gentleman named James Fishback who's an absolute schmuck, to put it lightly, that is campaigning and pulling a bunch of numbers on social media. He doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. And then there's Collins, who DeSantis might endorse. If DeSantis endorses Collins, I think it's going to be a very big uphill battle for Byron Donalds in the state of Florida. But Byron Donalds, I know on firsthand account, has already said that he will not support adult use cannabis in the state of Florida. He said he'll sign it if it's put on the ballot and it's voted for. He would rather it be done legislatively, which Florida's legislature is damn near impossible to get anything done. So, I mean, that's kind of just the tail wagging the dog. The Flowery and Jungle Boys are the best in Florida. That's a true statement.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida. If they could only get that right, what a market size that would be. And, yeah, we'll see. But VA looks all signs point in the right direction, and let's hope we get.
Yeah, I mean, there's growth coming from other states.
Yeah,
and like I said, it'd be great. It's icing on the cake. But am I buying any companies right now with the preconceived notion of, hey, I'm betting on adult use passing in the state of Florida? I absolutely am not. It's too unpredictable.
Yeah, you're right, Mitch. Yeah, 60% is a stretch. Kim Rivers says there's over 2 million signatures submitted. She put that on X.
I have no idea. I haven't seen it.
All right. Speaking of Florida, one company that had a big footprint with it at one time was the Cannabis Company Holdings. They sold all their assets. Don't look now, but that was 16, 17 months ago. And they've been selling a lot of assets since then in Virginia as well, but they got latest news. You maybe want to dive into that and talk about what's next for this company, because there's some concerns obviously circulating around this company right now.
Yeah, they entered into a forbearance agreement with their creditors, which means that they have skipped their interest payments on their loans, and they've entered into an agreement that they are technically in default right now, but the note holders are not going to move against them. This is probably the first step in a restructuring process. Yeah. I know that we've had Jesse Channon on this program and David Hart a bunch. I mean, I consider them friends of mine and people in the industry that have given us their time over the years. But if I had to bet, I would say the Cannabist winds up in the same predicament that you just saw Air go through. I think they're going to go through a full-blown restructuring process. They're going to wind up going into a bidding program for the assets, and the public equity is a call option at best. The Cannabist it's over-levered. It's not performing. They sold both of their crown jewel Virginia assets to raise a bunch of cash, which was great. I mean, they're about to get $130 million, which was an upsized offer on their second asset that they're going to liquidate. And then I'm expecting the rest of the portfolio to get sold off for parts.
Yeah.
And go to probably Varrell and a couple of other people that are making aggressive acquisition moves in the space. That once they have the ability to pick those up in, let's say, receivership, and then de-lever the balance sheets.
You make a good point, Mitch. Maybe that's why Cresco raised funds to buy some of these types of organizational collapsing once bankrupt. Might be, you never know, but seems to me like we've seen this movie before. Notable names of the past, which we're all familiar with, was MedMen, Ianthus, Acreage, Air Wellness, all companies that we've seen this pattern become a little bit too familiar. And yeah, these are some big companies at one time. And it seems like the Cannabis Company Holdings is cash is tight right now, but there's been
That's
a lot
part of the maturation process. I mean,
It is.
this is going to happen to probably some other companies that are in the space. Everybody's not going to make it that's in the public markets right now. I mean, there's obviously the big boys out there. There's some of the small players that if you can read a balance sheet and understand risk and read into the businesses, I mean, they have sound businesses. There's others out there that are going to be casualties. It's just a function of the way that the industry is maturing.
Yeah. Gretchen actually writes, Anthony, are you concerned at all if any adult use programs in any of the states? No. Well, I look at Massachusetts, and what was the stat they were saying about how many people were so misled? And
in Massachusetts, they were misled in the signature process. Also in the last 90 days, Massachusetts, pretty sure, has put forth legislation to bring consumption lounges online. Yeah. And they've doubled the legal amount that you can hold on your person in their state. I mean, these initiatives are being funded by SAM. They're going to be on the ballot. I mean, as it is a democratic process in Massachusetts and Maine, if I'm not mistaken. I've spoken to probably 13. In Arizona's not going to happen either. I've spoken to maybe 13 operators in Massachusetts, and none of them think it has teeth, and none of them are worried that it's going to get passed via the ballot. Arizona is a big market. I mean, granted, I don't think any of these have teeth.
Yeah. All right. We got a full schedule this week. Tomorrow we're back, and 4:00 Wednesday and Thursday. Trent Willevek is actually going to be coming on with us on Thursday. I'll give you guys a heads up. Raj Grover from High Tide will be logging on to talk about, man, their print was pretty impressive. I know you put that out in the Baked In newsletter last Friday, but record revenue. And we'll get the idea from Raj Grover and talk about their domestic play and free cash flow that they're continue to produce as well. So that's telling, especially in the Canadian market. So we'll get him on Wednesday at 4:00, talk more about their latest print, what we can expect moving forward for the company here in 26. As I said, Trent Willevek will talk VA, we'll talk PA this week. And he's, I know we've been talking about those topics a lot lately, but there's no better person that understands those markets than Trent Willevek from Jushi. So we'll get an inside look.
Tomorrow we have Pulak Sharma, the CEO of Kazmira Therapeutics, coming on, who had the press release 2 weeks ago about they're starting to create the route to pure CBD prescriptions that are covered by insurance and reimbursed via Medicare.
Great. Also Wednesday, we have Veracizadian back on. They're talking about some new notes that were published. I know you'd looked over that briefly, but I'm just going to bring it up real quick about what he had sent us last week. What we have, where was that? Man, where is that email? I wanted to bring up. Anyways, I'll get back to it in just a moment. But we're going to have him on along with one of the doctors that he works with about rescheduling and some of the stuff they've been doing up in Canada for the past, well, not for the past months, but years. So we're going to bring him on along with the doctor on Wednesday at 4:00. And after we have the interview with Raj Grover. Anything else you want to add?
I'm good. This has been a busy Monday. There's a lot of headlines and news going on. And MSOS actually finished green today for a change. So we shall see what the rest of the week holds.
Yes. And
Matt Gaetz is not going to run for the governor of Florida.
No.
That's not going to happen.
What do you think's going to happen to his political career? Is he done?
I don't think he cares. I think he prefers being a podcast host or whatever news host that he is on the Newsmax or ON. Well, I don't know where he is. I don't really watch him. But I'm sure he's doing just fine.
Also want to mention too, YOLO, which is the ETF by Advisor Shares. It was best performing global cannabis ETF in 2025. They had returning of 29.92% versus 5.19% for MJ, which is huge. So also some stats here I'm seeing in January 26, cannabis equities pulled back broadly, but YOLO outperformed its global peer by 37 basis points. They have held up better than in its primary global peer. Diversification also means it is down less than U.S.-centric plays as we wait on reform. When reform lands, we expect U.S. focus to get the most benefit, but on the down. YOLO's exposure to diversified cannabis is a benefit to soften volatility. So again, we've been running that ad off to the right. If you want to learn more, make sure to log on to Advisor Shares and check out their ETF YOLO, a lot of the international plays right now that are already listed on senior exchanges. So thought I would throw that in. As well, today's podcast is presented by Flowhub. If you want to learn more and it's about scaling your business to another level, make sure you log on to flowhub.com and book a demo today. Anything else? I saw you shaking your head.
Yeah, Mr. Palace, True Leaf is not the best flower in the state of Florida. True Leaf is the largest company in the state of Florida. They sell the most cannabis, but I can assure you the best flower in the state of Florida is at Jungle Boys and the Flowery. And Sunburn is or was a pretty close top 3.
Yeah. If you guys haven't got a chance either, make sure to log on to Flowhub's YouTube channel as well. I got a chance to finally go in depth and watch the full video of Maryland. Kyle got himself some nice blue crab. Nice place to be in the state of Maryland in the summertime. But had some interesting stuff. I was unaware that every single night in the state, when it comes to dispensaries, they have to take all their product down. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That's crazy, that rule, that law, I should say. But
make it difficult, of course.
Keep it simple. But
Sunnyside's got good flower from time to time. I used to shop at Sunnyside every once in a while. There's one close to my house.
#1 edible dispensary location in the U.S., right across the street from Wrigley Field. Makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Can't be smoking joints inside of a baseball game, but I'm sure edibles go. And that's a great place to have an edible on a sunny summer afternoon watching the Cubs game. If you've never been, that's one place you got to get off the bucket.
I have been.
Such a great spot. All right, my friend. I'll see you back here tomorrow, 4:00. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after markets. That's the new weekly schedule here, the Trade of Black podcast. In the meantime, enjoy your evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Hey everyone, thanks again for watching here today. Listen, if you're getting value from us here at TDR, make sure to check us out at TDR Plus. It's our exclusive membership community. Why? Well, you'll see CEO interviews that go beyond business, showing a personal side that you won't find anywhere else, including the biggest names in the industry. Plus, you'll get insights from analysts and day traders on where the industry's headed, both short-term and long-term, and a direct chat group with our team. It's only $7 a month, just 25 cents a day, and it helps support everything we do here at TDR. If you want to join, just click the join button below and become a TDR Plus member today. And once again, a big thank you for being part of our community. So that's it for today. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.